I stepped out of the cab and froze when Marco put his hand on the woman's back
I
and the
think you'll
wedding
wanna see
band
this.
flashed under the hotel
over.
light. Guilt hit first, sharp enough that I swallowed and counted
money
my
was
breaths.
transferred
That
yesterday
guilt made me
to a
step back
numbered
instead of
account in her
forward.
name.
I had no plan to
The
speak to
timestamp
him.
is right here.
I only
And the
meant to
witness
hand over a
confirms
package
everything.
and leave.
Take
The
me.
package was in my bag, the courier work done, but my feet stayed planted on the wet
Where
stone.
is she?
A man in a suit adjusted
Sophia,
a
calm
label
down,
as if he
safe.
always did.
I need to see
Marco's
her now.
hand lingered at
Not
the
until we
small
know
of the
who's
woman's
behind us.
back. He did not smile. He did not look like a man at ease with the woman beside him. I saw the way his shoulders tightened, the way his thumb tapped a rhythm against her coat, and I understood in a single, cold instant that the problem I had waited to name all year was suddenly undeniable. He was married. I watched him look up and my name became small and private in my throat. He blinked, surprised, then composed himself. He did not call my name Elena. Lucia's voice came from behind me, soft with curiosity and impatience. I turned. Lucia stood under the awning, scarf damp with rain, a takeout carton pressed between her palms. He was with a woman, I said. He's married. My voice cut flat. I did not let my longing show in the way I tightened my fingers around the strap of my bag. Lucia blinked. Marco Santoro. The Marco Santoro. Her sentence was short. Did you speak to him? No. I pulled the bag closer. I couldn't. We had arrived at the hotel for a work drop, coordinates, signatures, nothing dramatic. That was the point. I am never the one to make a scene. I have always chosen restraint because restraint keeps other people safe and my own conscience intact. Tonight, restraint felt like a barrier. I could no longer tell whether I was propping up out of duty or out of fear. When Marco's eyes met mine, it was less a greeting and more an intake of air. He smoothed a crease on his sleeve and moved forward with the woman. For a second I thought he would stop, but he did not. He left with a practiced calm that had the weight of habit. I spent the walk home naming facts to myself so I would not slide into excuses. Marco Santoro is 35, he runs Santoro Law and Partners, and he is married to Isabella. I remembered the quiet way he measured silence when I had dropped off documents at the office last month. I remembered his hand on a folder, the silver tie clip catching light. Facts kept my feet under me. Facts made the ache manageable. At the cafe in the morning I told Lucia everything. The cafe smelled of steamed milk and lemon peel. I pushed a napkin across the table and ordered black coffee, because coffee kept my hands from shaking. You looked at him, Lucia, you always look at him. Stop. I set the napkin down. Lucia, please. Not like that. I folded my hands. I did not cross a line. I never crossed a line. The refusal was firmer than the admission. Lucia watched me. Isabella's ring was visible. He left with her. Why does this hurt you, Elena? I touched my thin gold locket at my throat without thinking. The locket had my father's handwriting folded inside. I fingered the edge until the metal warmed. Because I love him, I said. The words were small and exact. Saying them made the table seem too narrow, as if the room had compressed around a secret. Lucia's face shifted. She was 15 years my friend and a shorter temper. You love Marco Santoro. But he's married. I know. My hands closed around the coffee cup as if to steady another pulse. I know that. That's why I left instead of speaking. I kept my voice even. Saying the obvious made me responsible for what came next. Lucia pressed her lips. You can't keep doing this to yourself. Tell him or stop looking. Telling him is dangerous in a different way. I said, listen, he protects his family. If Isabella thinks there is anything improper, it will cost him everything. I will not be the cause of that. The decision was concrete, a refusal to be the reason for other people's ruin. Duty and guilt braided tight. The next afternoon I went to Santoro and Associates to deliver a corrected set of contracts. The office smelled of lemon oil and new paper. Antonio Santoro greeted me at reception with a neutral head tilt. He is Marco's cousin. His face holds the same square jaw and the same careful restraint. Elena Rossi, he said, repeating my name the way someone repeats a coin to check its edges. You have the documents. I handed them across the desk. His fingers brushed mine for a second. He did not smile. Marco is not available today. Leave them with me. His tone had a specific distance. I slipped past the reception, the corridor lights reflecting in the marble floor. I should have left, but the notice on my desk was small, a folded scrap tucked into the documents I had returned. I did not see who had placed it there. The handwriting was neat and left unsigned. The line inside read, Please be careful with what you carry in your eyes. The note changed the shape of the room. The message was small and warning, leaning, and it made my chest tighten in a way that was not entirely fear. It was curiosity sharpened by alarm. I folded the note into my palm until the paper softened. That night the sky opened and rain came hard enough to make the city hiss. I arrived back at the law offices to collect another file and found Marco under the carport, his coat pulled to his neck, folder clutched against his chest. He moved with that practiced control, every step measured. We reached for the same folder at the same time, our hands touched. He withdrew slowly, as if the contact required permission. For a beat I heard only the rain and our breathing. Elena, he said, voice low and steady. He did not use my last name. There was an old warmth in the syllable and something else layered beneath it. An attention that had weight. Marco, I answered. My finger still remembered the exact place his thumb had met paper. I tucked a strand of hair behind my ear. The delivery is ready. Sorry to bother you in this weather. My sentence was practical. I wanted to keep the world of work between us. He did not let me go immediately. He adjusted his cufflinks, the familiar small movement, and then looked at me. You were at the hotel last night. I could have lied. I did not. Lies multiply later. I have seen that happen. I saw you, I said. You were with Isabella. A flicker crossed his face, almost regret, almost apology, but it closed fast. Yes, he said. We were at the hotel. I felt longing move into the space where I had placed only duty. It was a slow, precise shift. Pulse in my throat, a catch in my breath, and a sudden awareness of the gap between what I wanted and what I could morally hold. The longing made me clench my jaw. The guilt that had been steady since the first sighting turned inward, focusing on choices instead of feelings. Elena, he said again. His voice had a note of something like warning. Be careful what you say about my family. Reputation matters more than you think. I stared at him. Is that a warning or a favor? I asked. He looked at me like a man measuring how much to reveal. Both, he said. Walking home, I left the folder on the passenger seat and fingered the folded note in my coat. The rain had washed the city bright. I tried to read the handwriting again, as if a new angle would reveal the author. Whoever had written that line had knowledge of our small, cautious world. That night at home I opened the documents and found a slip of paper tucked inside, unsigned, the same handwriting as before. The line inside was different this time. You should not carry someone else's risk. My heart pushed against my ribs in a way that felt like panic for the first time. Panic made me stand and pace. I counted the steps across my kitchen tile and pressed the heel of my hand to the small scar on my eyebrow. Grounding actions. They helped me name fear without letting it grow abstract. I sat at the kitchen table and wrote. I wrote the words I would never send. I wrote a letter that began with the truth and ended with an apology. The paper took the ink. My locket lay open on the table, the chain catching the lamplight. When Isabella found me, I did not hear her footsteps until she was right behind me. She appeared in the half-lit hotel corridor the following night. Words like glass, you, she said, and the single syllable was a strike. My pulse quickened. I turned slowly. Isabella's eyes were cool and bright and full of accusation. She did not smile. Her voice was steady. Who are you to be in my husband's life, Elena? The sentence was clean, legal almost, as if she were reading a charge. Marco arrived then, and his face shifted the way an actor's expression shifts to a prepared cue. He stepped between us with a motion that aimed to shield. His hand was flat against my shoulder as if to keep me back. At first I believed it was meant to protect me. Isabella, he said. His voice folded into tight, calm weight. This is not. Isabella's eyes moved to him like a blade. Marco, don't explain to her. Her words came faster, accusing. Why are you defending her? Why are you always defending her? The question broke into quick pieces. Marco's jaw tightened. Isabella, please. This is not the place. He tried to take her hand. She pulled away. You see her, you lie to me, and then you stand between us. Isabella's tone changed from inquiry to a demand. Who is she, Marco? Who is she to you? Marco looked at me. He held my eyes for a long, dangerously honest second. I could see the choices moving inside his face. Duty, habit, protectiveness. Then he looked away and said, Elena is a colleague. She delivers documents for the firm. Isabella's laugh had nothing of humor. A colleague. Marco, your colleague, does not carry your hand at her waist and look at you the way you looked at her last night. Her words landed like a new accusation, and the corridor closed in on us. I felt the air leave my lungs. Shame arrived with a physical force, a clench in my throat, my hands going cold. I wanted to speak, to tell Isabella that there had been nothing, that I had stepped back, that I had retreated to keep a promise I had barely spoken to myself. But when I opened my mouth, the words were thin. Isabella, please, Marco, his voice broke at the edges, please. Not here. He reached again for her hand and she jerked away. This is not what you think. Elena, I shut my mouth. My fingers found the edge of the envelope where my unsent confession lay inside. The letter's paper was soft from my handling. I did not pull it out. Instead, I folded my hands into my lap and felt my heartbeat stutter. Isabella's face went very still. Then prove it, Marco. Prove it to me now. Her words were a demand and a test. A man stepped from the shadows of the corridor, a bellman with damp hair, and cleared his throat awkwardly. The sound cut across our triangle like a reset. Marco turned to the man for a second, calculating, then back to us. His composure split a little at the edges. Elena, he said low, leave. Please. The sentence hung between an order and a plea. I did not argue. I left the corridor the way I had come into it, with my hands empty and my pocket full of a truth I would not speak. I walked into the rain and the city's streetlights shimmered on the pavement like wet coins. Outside, the rain hit my coat and I pressed my locket until it hurt. My breath came in measured pulls. There was a small, sudden moment of clarity, an action I could take that would not hurt anyone else. I walked home and wrote the letter to the man I loved and did not send it. I folded it into the envelope and sealed it with my thumb. At midnight I stood on my balcony and watched the blurred city lights. I felt shame and longing and a stubborn, careful resolve that was neither brave nor cowardly but necessary. I put the sealed envelope into the inner pocket of my coat and closed the clasp of my locket. The decision was a concrete thing. Keep the promise, keep the truth private, accept the cost. I do not know what will happen next. I only know the choice I made at the end of this night. To protect his life from a truth that would hurt more than help, and to hold my own quiet confession in a sealed envelope I will carry for as long as it takes. Outside my building a taxi hissed and a couple argued across the street. Inside my chest a single slow breath steadied me. I put the letter back into the pocket and turned away from the balcony. The final sound in the chapter was the soft click of the door as I locked it behind me, a small, deliberate closing on what I would keep and what I would leave undone. The SUV braked so hard the rain hammered the pavement, and my umbrella snapped a joint. Marco's hand closed over the package before I could pull it back, and the hotel light caught the small gold band on his finger. I felt shame flood my chest sharp enough that I shoved my free hand into my coat and counted breaths until my fingers stopped shaking. Shame steered my feet before any other thought. Step back, leave, pretend this was an ordinary delivery and nothing more. A woman in a damp coat watched us from the lobby doorway. She glanced down and then up at Marco. He didn't look at her. He held the envelope like it weighed nothing and said, "It's for me." His voice was controlled. My mouth was dry. I had been thinking of that envelope all day. Earlier, I had stepped out of a cab and froze when Marco had put his hand on a woman's back and the wedding band had flashed under the hotel light. An image that stayed with me the way a bruise stays after the body wants to forget. I had no plan to speak to him. I only meant to hand over the package and walk away. Now his palm closed around the paper and his driver, Luca, had the engine running and the SUV idling like a dark animal. The problem was simple and immediate. If anyone called this scene what it looked like, Marco's life would be complicated and my name would be a rumor. Carla, the hotel manager, appeared from the lobby with her coat collar raised and a clipboard in her hand. "Excuse me, miss, you can't loiter here," she said. Her voice had that official, measured tone that pretends rules are the only thing that matter. I could hear the edges of accusation. I moved a step forward to explain, then stopped. Shame tightened my jaw. I pictured the cab meter running. I pictured Anna outside, waiting with her umbrella. I pictured Marco's wife arriving and misunderstanding everything. Marco put himself between Carla and me as if he could build a wall with his shoulders. She's with me. "Luca, hold the car." He didn't look at me then, only at Carla, and his mouth made a flat line. "We have a tight schedule, Carla." "Thank you." His hand on the package did not tremble. He kept his posture precise, as if distance could solve what hurried glances might ruin. "Go on, please," he told me without offering his name. Carla hesitated, scanned my face, then stepped back. Her clipboard tapped a small, nervous rhythm. "If you reassure, sir." Her eyes flicked to my coat, to the damp hem. I felt the public itch of being inspected. Shame pushed me toward the curb. I started to walk, but Marco's voice stopped me in the space between the wet pavement and the SUV. "Elena," he my name. He had never used it like that in public before, quiet, exact. My hand found the locket under my scarf as my throat treated the word like a small stone. Saying a name made the moment private again and made everything riskier. Luca opened the rear door with a soft hydraulic sigh. Marco slid into the driver's side rear seat and patted the leather. He motioned for me. A lump rose in my throat, fear now braided with shame. The fear wasn't abstract, it was practical. If Isabella arrived and misread this as more than an exchange, she could demand an explanation that would splinter the careful surface of Marco's life. Fear gave my fingers purpose. I stepped into the SUV because he invited me, not because I trusted the invitation. I sat on the far edge of the leather bench, hands flat on my lap to keep them visible. Luca stood outside with his umbrella, collar turned up, eyes on the valet. Inside the car, the air smelled of leather cleaner and a faint tobacco. Marco leaned forward, unbuttoned his glove, and slid his fingers along the envelope's edge as if checking for damage. He did not open it. "You left this on my desk yesterday." His tone was even though a part of his face, near the jaw scar, tightened when he asked. "No," I said. My voice came out smaller than I planned. "I left it at reception. I thought it would be the easiest way to get it to you." I kept my eyes low. When I looked up, he was studying the handwriting on the front. "Not me. It's not meant to be delivered. It's unsent." Marco finished for me, and the word landed with no flourish. He folded his gloved hand over the package as if to hide it. The SUV hummed. The hotel port, Cochlear light cut the rain into bright strips across the seats. We were both quiet then, the kind of silence that holds several breaths. I could hear my pulse in my ears. I remembered the morning after the gallery opening, the small coffee stain on his cuff, where we'd both leaned on the table at the corner, his quick, irritated laugh when I pointed it out. That image came not as a metaphor but as a precise memory. The way the coffee sat darker against the fabric, the smell that clung to his skin. I had told myself I would fold my feelings like paper and tuck them away. That plan had not survived the envelope. A sudden flash of movement at the hotel entrance made me drop my hands to my knees. Isabella stood under a black umbrella, the hotel steps behind her like a smear of light. She did not look surprised at first. Her face was a tight mask that said she had been expecting trouble and was tired of finding it. Then she saw the envelope on Marco's knee and her mouth opened slightly. The rain carved tracks down her coat. She lifted her face and said, "Marco." Her voice split the space. Isabella's arrival tightened everything to a single hinge. The public folded in. My stomach turned over into a new kind of fear, anger from her, accusation, the possibility of being named as the cause of a fight. I had not expected to meet her. I had only planned to hand something over and leave. Now she was here. She was looking at the envelope and then at me. Suspicion sharpened in the set of her jaw. Isabella, Marco. He kept his hands where they were on the package. I was just leaving. He did not stand. He did not offer his seat. The driver, Luca, shifted his weight on the sidewalk as if ready to step in. Carla hovered near the lobby, clipboard forgotten. Hotel security edged closer, eyes bright with the promise of order. Isabella's umbrella hit a puddle as she took a step toward the car. "Who is she?" Her voice was low but clear. It had a dangerous calm, the kind that said she wanted facts, not melodrama. She held the umbrella like an accusation. For a beat I considered naming my friend Anna, the real reason I had the envelope in my hands, but the words stuck to the back of my throat. Shame made me small. Marco turned the envelope so the handwriting faced him. "It's Elena. She left something at reception for me." I said I would take it. He did not say more. His jaw moved under his skin. Isabella's eyes dropped to the name on the front, and then she looked at me. "You gave him something?" she asked. The question sounded like a verdict. I swallowed. "Yes, Isabella, it's a letter I wrote. I didn't mean—" I stopped because the explanation sounded both honest and useless. Isabella's face read a memory she already decided upon. not a plea I could make. She stepped closer, and the heels of her boots clicked on the wet stone. "You wrote him a letter," she repeated. Carla cleared her throat. "Madam, perhaps we should." She began. "This is a private matter." Her tone attempted neutrality and failed. Luca looked from Marco to Isabella and back to me, his fingers tightening around the umbrella handle. The hotel's lights softened the rain into a haze of gold and wet black. The situation had grown teeth. Isabella reached for the envelope. Her hand brushed Marco's as she took it. For an instant, their fingers overlapped and I watched him straighten. He did not pull away. Then, quietly, he slid the flap open and unfolded the paper inside. He read a single line with his lips moving, as if testing the weight of each word aloud. His eyes went to the handwriting, then to the paper's fold, then to me. When he looked up, something in his face shifted. "This handwriting," he broke off. The Suv's interior light flashed against his signet ring. He ran one gloved thumb along the paper, and then closed the letter again. Later I would understand why that small motion changed everything. The fold of the paper showed a crease he recognized from a page he had once traced with his finger. Isabella set her umbrella against the railing and said, "Show me." Her voice cut. "Show me now, Marco." The accusation came sharply, built into the hush. My lungs forgot to pull in air. I gripped the locket at my throat because the movement anchored me. Marco hesitated. Then he did something I did not expect. He placed his free hand over the folded letter but kept the envelope between them and said, "Not here." He slid his thumb along the edge and closed the letter again. "Not here, Isabella. Please." His tone had a place in it that held back more than the rain. He reached into the seat beside him, felt for the locket and folded card the way someone checks a pulse. His fingers closed on the thin gold chain inside my coat pocket and then withdrew a small folded card. He pressed it into my palm. The card was cool and heavier than it looked. It had a single line on the outside, a time and a place. My name was not written there, only a wordless instruction. I read it and then looked up. Isabella's eyes were narrowed and she asked, "What is that?" She sounded like a judge who had lost patience. Marco did not answer her. He motioned so Luca would close the SUV door. The driver obeyed and the car exhaled safety. "Luca, Marco, take us." Now he did not raise his voice. The command moved the scene. Luca started around to the driver's side. Isabella's posture crumpled a degree as if she had expected a different outcome. The accusation turned into immediate action. "Where are you going?" Marco kept his head down a fraction of an inch and said, "Away." "I'll call you later." His fingers tightened for a second on the leather, and then he guided the door closed with a soft click. Isabella lifted the umbrella and stood watching the SUV as the taillights slid across the wet asphalt. Her lips pressed thin. Carla opened her mouth, then closed it. The security guard walked back toward the lobby, clipboard tucked under his arm, as if the formalities of the hotel might still contain what had just passed. I sat with the card folded in my palm, heart galloping somewhere under my ribs. Shame had shifted into a new texture, gratitude threaded with fear. Gratitude because he had chosen to hide the letter. Fear because whatever he had seen had not been kind to me. We drove. The SUV's tires hissed through the rain. Marco's hand rested near the envelope on the seat between us but did not touch it. Luca kept his eyes on the road as if detours were a thing one could measure. The city lights slurred into long, wet strokes. I kept the card folded like a secret. My thumb traced the crease until it warmed under my skin. I wanted to ask why the handwriting on the envelope had made his face change, but the question felt like a live wire. Instead I said, "Marco, you could have handed it back. I can go." My voice had a brittle edge. He looked at me then in the dim interior and said, "You left me something once. A folded page with a coffee stain. I thought I'd misplaced it. I didn't expect to find another." He did not explain more. He folded his hands, thumbed at a cufflink, and let the silence answer. The revelation altered what I thought I had given him. If he recognized that fold, then this letter was not simply an anonymous note. It was connected to a private history between us I had not admitted. That realization pushed through me like a new current, doubt and then urgency. Doubt. Had I misread him? Urgency. What did he plan now? My fingers tightened on the card until the paper bent. A thought struck with physical force. Isabella had seen the envelope. She had seen the letters, the name, and she had demanded proof. The proof had turned into a night-time choice at a curb. For a second I pictured her in the house I had once visited, in a kitchen I knew the angle of, and I felt the weight of what my presence could do to another person. That image made me move. I said, "Isabella, Marco, I'm sorry if this caused you pain." The words felt inadequate. Marco's head dipped and then rose quick. "Alina, don't apologize for what you didn't do in front of her. Not tonight." His voice was both a shield and an order. "Anthony, no, that was not his name." My mind raced to correct itself and then stopped. I had to keep focus. "What do you want me to do?" I asked. "Keep it closed," he said simply. "Leave it where it is. Don't tell anyone what you know." His answer left no room for negotiation. He turned his face so the light carved a strip across his cheek and then looked straight ahead. The city opened into quieter streets. Luca pulled up at a side entrance to a private garage. Marco him to wait 2 minutes. Luca nodded and killed the engine. The car fell into silence again. I reached into my coat and found the locket. Marco's fingers brushed mine as he lifted it and studied the thin chain. He returned it to me, then slipped a small folded card into my palm the way someone tucks a passport into a coat. The card read a time and a place. 8 in the back room of Rossi Gallery. Anna's name swam at the back of my memory, my friend who had promised she would meet me if anything went wrong. I felt the urge to hand the card back, to refuse whatever invitation the city had become, but my fingers closed. The card's edge was a new sort of proof. Gratitude arrived again, quieter this time, shaped by a measure of fear. Gratitude because he had stopped a public scene and kept the letter folded. Fear because the folded paper showed he now had something private I had not intended him to hold. My emotions shifted twice in the space of minutes, shame to fear to gratitude to resolve. Those shifts found expression in how I set the locket against my throat, in the way I breathed through each moment, not in words. Luca opened the door for me when the car stopped. The rain had thinned to a patter. I tucked the card into the inside pocket of my coat and buttoned the locket so it would not swing. Marco's eyes met mine briefly. "Don't say anything to Anna yet. Wait until you know." He did not raise his voice. The quiet of that instruction carried weight. I wanted to ask why he had recognized the fold, why he had chosen to protect me when protection cost him publicly. But his face closed like a safe and he looked away. Anna ran up with her umbrella at the curb, cheeks flushed, breath visible in the cold. She took in the SUV, Marco's retreat, and then me. "Alina, are you okay?" she asked. Her voice had that blunt warmth friends have when they come prepared for the worst. I handed her the locket without thinking. "I will explain in the taxi," I said. The locket felt solid in her palm, heavy with a story I had not yet decided to tell. We left the hotel under a sky that still held rain but had forgotten to punish. I kept thinking of the fold, of the coffee-stained memory Marco had touched without naming. The night had given me 2 gifts and 1 warning. He had protected me, and he had returned the locket, but he had also shown me that he knew more about my past care for him than I had allowed. That knowledge shifted the relationship between us in a way that made my pulse speed. When Anna settled me into the taxi, she asked quick questions. Who was that? Did he do something? Is Isabella okay? I answered in pieces. The taxi's heater hummed. Outside, the city lights were smeared into wet colors. I kept the card folded in my coat and my thumb on the crease until it felt warm. At the corner where she promised to stop, "Anna, Alina, if you need me," and left the sentence open, I closed it in my head by saying, "I know, Anna." "Thank you." I stepped out and the rain found the collar of my coat again. At the taxi stand I opened the card because waiting felt like a secret I could not keep. The paper unfolded to a single instruction. A name was not there. A time was. An address I knew. The back room of Rossi Gallery where I'd sat counting the days after the opening. The card wasn't an apology or a confession. It was a request to meet. The small handwriting was neat, the ink a washed slate in the taxi light. My hand trembled and I closed the paper quickly, folding it along the crease Marco had used. I thought of Isabella on the portico with her umbrella, her voice clipped with anger. I thought of Marco's face when he touched the fold. I thought of Anna waiting beneath the lamplight. I felt the shift inside me from helpless to chosen. I had to make a decision that did something instead of simply feeling. I slid the card into my journal, tucked the locket below the pages, and buttoned the coat. A horn honked. I looked up. Anna's silhouette crossed the street, moving toward me with a brisk gait. You look like you survived a war. Tell me everything. Now her voice had no patience for dramatic pauses. I held up the journal like an argument and said, "Not here. Later tonight. Rossi Gallery. 8. My voice was steady enough to mean it. She nodded. Okay, I'll wait. Don't be late. She put a hand on my arm the way a friend does when she wants to press strength into you. I folded the card into the journal and felt the paper press into the leather cover. The night had collapsed into choices. Keep walking away or follow the card that Marco had risked to give me. I had the locket against my chest and the echo of his name in my ear. The decision felt immediate. I stepped into the shadow of the cafe across the street and ordered a coffee with my fingers still damp from rain. The barista set a cup on the saucer. The spoon clinked against porcelain. I watched the steam lift in a small white curl and listened to the door close behind a man with a briefcase. When the spoon settled, I stood. I tucked the journal under my arm and felt the weight of the evening settle into a practical shape. I had a time, I had a place. I had a card folded into my pages and a locket at my throat. I had Anna waiting and a promise from Marco I could not interpret yet. I walked out into the rain with a resolve that was not brave or performative. It was simply the decision to keep the next appointment. The card in my palm was small and specific. I folded my umbrella and set my steps toward home, aware that the next move would be chosen, not given. When I reached the corner, my phone vibrated in my coat. A number I did not expect, Marco. I looked at the screen, thumb hovering. I did not answer. Instead, I slipped the phone back into my pocket and kept walking. The last image of the night was concrete. The card's crease pressed into the page, the locket's cool metal against my skin, and Anna's umbrella swinging as she crossed the street toward me. That was where the chapter closed, on a decision to keep an appointed time and to see what his folded paper asked of me. I would open the door at 8, and I would step into whatever consequences arrived there. The man's hand yanked the envelope from my fingers before I could step through the black curtain. Shame tightened my jaw the second it happened. I had rehearsed this handoff a dozen times and never planned for a fist at my wrist. The bodyguard Luca, I had learned his name by sight over the months, showed no hesitation. He turned the paper, thumbed back a corner, and I felt a guilty panic at the sight of my handwriting. My chest filled with shame and a small, hot suspicion that someone would read what I had kept secret. I stepped back instead of forward. The corridor smelled of dry polish and spilled wine. Near the service door, the gala's music thudded through the wall. I had come because the ledger pages would answer the question that had been following Marco and me for weeks. What had been transferred, and why did my name appear in a handwriting sample at the edge of those records? That question had turned into a problem. If anyone connected the envelope to Marco Santoro, his marriage and reputation would fracture. Luca held the envelope like it weighed nothing. He did not look at me. He watched the corridor. He placed the packet on a nearby tray and called, "Boss, it's from her." His voice was low and controlled. He used the same word the hotel staff used when Marco walked past them. Boss. The word landed on me with a different meaning. The concrete stakes were visible. If the ledger or the note inside showed Marco's name, Sophia would see evidence in her own hands. If Sophia saw it here, in front of staff, her reaction would be immediate and loud. The corridor door opened and Marco stepped through with a coat slung over his arm. He had that posture I recognized, the shoulders back, the slow measured step. He moved toward us without urgency. He took the envelope with 2 precise fingers and lifted the corner, scanning the visible handwriting. He did not smile. His wedding band flashed once in the sodium light. I felt shame again. I had watched the band catch Hotel Light 2 chapters ago and told myself I would keep distance. But those vows kept appearing between us like a barrier I could not climb. Marco looked at me then. He might name the way people say a fact they already know, Elena. His voice was low. He held the envelope like evidence. Luca stayed a careful half-step behind him. Marco's eyes were steady. There was reserve in them I couldn't read as accusation or curiosity. I remembered the night at the hotel where his hand touched a woman's back and the band flashed, how I had swallowed and stepped away. That memory stung now because the new situation made it look deliberate to anyone watching. Marco, I managed. My hands found my coat pockets. I felt suspicion shift into fear as staff heads started to peer around the service door. The galla's outer hall had high ceilings and many witnesses. The problem was no longer just a private question about accounts. It could become a public accusation of entanglement. Marco's face did not change. He folded his mouth inward the way he did when he measured a risk. Sophia arrived like a strike. She opened the corridor door and the air shifted again. She stood in the doorway with a glass of champagne in one hand and her coat folded over the other arm. Her eyes hit me first, then the envelope. Her face went hard. What is she doing here? Sophia's voice cut through the corridor. Her sentence had a demand, not a question. Staff looked between Sophia and Marco. A server dropped a tray. A few clumsy apologies chased the sound. Sophia pushed into the corridor. Marco kept his hold on the envelope but did not step back. He spoke with measured control. Sophia, this is not what you think. He used her name like a shield. Sophia's jaw tightened. Not what I think. Sophia's voice rose. Elena, why are you here with his papers? Her accusation landed on me like ice. I felt shame and then a flush of indignation because I had kept my distance all these weeks, and yet my presence here made her suspicion explode. Around us, people leaned forward. The staff assistant who had been hovering took a step closer. Anna arrived across the threshold like a person who had been told to intervene. She had come because I texted her hours earlier to say only, if you see me, check on me. She walked towards Sophia and spoke quickly in a tone that was meant to clear the air. Sophia, Alina volunteers at the charity. She's been handling auction items all day. Anna's words were short. Sophia turned to Anna. Do you vouch for her, Anna? She asked. The challenge in Sophia's voice made everyone quiet. Anna hesitated. Her eyes flicked to me and back to Sophia. Yes, Sophia, I can vouch for Elena's presence tonight. Her voice was small. The admission wasn't enough. It only widened suspicion because Anna added, she's been at several events Marco attended. That detail landed like fuel on a slow ember. Sophia's gaze sharpened. Marco folded the envelope shut with a deliberate hand. He did not let Sophia open it. Stop. The one word demand snapped attention back to him. He turned his profile towards Sophia and said, this is not the place. Let's step into the office. He did not invite me. He motioned for Luca to clear a path. Sophia's eyes narrowed. She stepped forward anyway, then stopped when Luca set a hand at her elbow with a professional restraint. We moved down a narrow service corridor into a private office above the gala hall. The door closed behind us. The room smelled faintly of coffee and printer toner. Marco set the envelope on a desk and pushed it toward me without touching my hand. Tell me. Now his voice was controlled, low, the way he shortened sentences when he wanted facts quickly. I swallowed. I was supposed to deliver it at the cloakroom. I didn't expect him, Luca, to open it here. My sentences were short. I kept the confession clipped and concrete, because long explanations felt like making excuses. Marco's eyes measured me, and I saw an opening where curiosity hovered above caution. Why would you deliver this to him? Marco. My name once. There was less reserve now. This was a demand to understand motive. Why does your handwriting appear on the corner? My mouth went dry. I let my fingers find the thin gold locket at my throat. The same locket I had fingered when I stepped out of the cab the night his band flashed under the hotel light. I said, I signed receipts for the charity. Someone added ledger pages to this envelope. I thought I was closing an old obligation. The sentence came out small but precise. Marco's jaw tightened. He pinched the bridge of his nose. There was a pause long enough for someone to knock, and then silence. The staff assistant returned with an awkward, open-handed movement and placed a clipboard on the desk. Sir, someone checked inside that envelope in the corridor. They found ledger pages and a typed note with some numbers. A woman in the hall said the note implied financial transfers. Sophia saw it and asked. He stopped. His gaze flicked to Sophia's name as if that alone explained the urgency. Sophia's footsteps were audible before she opened the office door. She did not wait for permission. Her face had a flash of anger and betrayal. She pointed at the envelope. Let me see. Her hand brushed the papers and then she read. Her lips moved. She looked up at Marco. What does this mean? She demanded. Her voice had a sharp edge that lodged words into accusation. Sophia, this ledger is old receipts. It's not what you rethinking, Marco, and the sentence had the tone of someone trying to buy time. He rose and stood close to Sophia, his hand hovering near hers as if to take the papers away. Sophia did not hand them over. Elena, why is your handwriting on the delivery list? Her gaze bore into me like someone looking for a flaw they already expected to find. I pushed a breath out. I wanted to answer, but the room had acquired witnesses, an event assistant, a hovering server, Luca in the doorway. My attention sharpened. Shame became a physical etch in my throat. I said, I wrote the delivery notes months ago. I never met the person I was supposed to hand the package to in person. I only signed the receipt and left it at the office. My sentences were deliberate. I kept eye contact with Sophia when I could. Sophia's voice tightened. Then why are there ledgers with his name in them? Her question put the core accusation on the table. Marco's face did not crumble, but his hands tightened on the desk edge. Because someone wanted to put them there. The reply sounded like denial, but it lacked softness. Anna stepped forward. Sophia, I saw Elena tonight. She has been working for the charity for months. She isn't involved in Marco's business. Her tone was defensive. Sophia's eyes flicked to Anna and then returned to me. You stand close to him, Elena. You follow his events. How am I to trust you? Sophia's question was direct. I felt my face burn. Sophia, Marco, and there was a clipped patience in the way he spoke her name now. He reached into his suit jacket and produced a phone. He tapped it twice and slid a screen toward me. On the screen was a scanned receipt marked with a signature and a time stamp that matched a day I had been at the charity office. This record ties to a deposit line. The ledger here shows numbers that echo those transfers. We need to know whether this is clerical error or a deliberate misdirection. His voice listed facts. It avoided accusation but raised the same stakes. Sophia read and then laughed once, a brittle sound error, or secrecy. Her next sentence clipped the air. Elena, did you know about this? Me directly. The room contracted. I could feel my heartbeat at my throat. I said, no, the word was bare. I kept it short because anything longer would have sounded like bargaining. The event assistant cleared his throat. Sophia, sir, staff witnessed a note in the envelope that implied the money was routed through charity accounts. It was unsigned but referenced your name. Santoro, the staff member's voice was careful. He looked at Marco for direction. Marco's hand moved to the envelope, and he let his fingers rest on the outermost page. I saw a small rustle of movement in Sophia's face. Her eyes searched Marco's expression. Marco, tell me it's nothing. Her voice was not quiet. There was a demand for ownership. Marco hesitated. I felt fear shift into anger then. It arrived as a cold inside my palms. I had not expected to be angry at Marco, but his silence felt like a choice that exposed me. I wanted to speak, to say that I never wanted this to touch his life. Instead I said, Sophia, I never touched his accounts. I delivered a package for the charity months ago and someone added ledger pages. I don't know who. My tone was steady. I put my hand over my locket and felt the metal under my fingers. Marco stepped between us and made a decision that tilted the room. This is dangerous. I will handle it. Elena, leave now. Go home, I will. Sophia cut him off. Handle it how? Handle it by sending her away while I stand with the proofs. Her words were quick. If you handle it, I want the truth now. She pushed the papers back toward him. Marco's expression tightened. I will dismiss this tonight. I will tell the staff these are unrelated documents. For now, Elena should leave. His voice had a brittle containment that felt like both protection and dismissal. The staff assistant looked relieved to have direction. Luca blocked the doorway in a professional movement. I realized then that Marco's choice had just contained a public scene at the cost of my dignity. My shame shifted into a hollow ache and then into a quiet resolve. I would not argue further with Sophia in front of guests. I had to keep the ledger from becoming an explosive rumor. I crossed the room and pushed the envelope toward him again. If you want to protect your family, deny it now, I said. My sentence was slow. I kept my voice level. Marco looked at me. I am not asking you to take responsibility. I added, I am asking you to protect what you will lose if this lands the wrong way. The words landed between us like a small, precise offering. Marco's eyes flicked to my fingers on the envelope. He did not take it. He used a different tactic. He stood and said, Luca, escortms, Rossi out. Discreetly, Luca stepped forward and placed a professional hand at my elbow. I felt his grip as a physical pressure. Sophia watched me leave. Her expression did not soften. In the corridor outside the office, the noise of the gala returned. A manager spoke into a radio. I realized the episode had produced a small twist I had not predicted. The event assistant had shown Sophia a typed note that referenced specific account numbers. That revelation changed the scale. It implied someone had deliberately placed records to look like transfers. The twist made my original claim that I only delivered receipts sound more fragile. Anna met me at the service door. She looked at my face and her mouth opened. "Alina, you all right?" she asked. Her voice had real worry. I nodded. My voice felt small. "I'm fine. I'll step outside for air." I said it because I needed to be alone to think. I walked under the canopy where rain had left the pavement wet. The city's street light pooled on the asphalt. I stood under the amber spill of light and took a breath. My fingers went to the locket again. The physical contact steadied me. I wrote letters in my head I had no intention of sending. Shame had driven me to keep distance from Marco. Now his decision to protect the scene by dismissing the papers felt like protection at the cost of my reputation. Shame shifted to a hard clarity. Someone wanted to weaponize a ledger against him, and my presence had been convenient. I looked back at the hotel entrance. Through the glass, I could see Marco speak to Sophia with a distance that suggested control, but also concealment. He kept his hand on the envelope out of sight. I felt that this quiet, tethered feeling I had held since I first saw his wedding band in a hotel corridor. It had kept me honest. It had kept me away. Yet here I was, pushed into the open by other people's hands. Anna came out and sat on the curb beside me without asking. She spoke softly. "They will ask questions tomorrow. Sophia will want to see bank statements. Marco will be perfect at saying it's a mistake. But someone put numbers in a way that points at him." She paused. Who else could have access to those files? Her question landed as a new task. I placed the envelope inside the inner pocket of my coat. I felt its weight like a thing I had to carry. I said, "I signed receipts. That is a fact. Someone altered the delivery. Someone used my handwriting to cover their tracks. I don't know who." My sentences were short. Anna looked at me, then at the street. A taxi rolled up at the curb. The driver checked his meter and watched us with an idle curiosity. I stood and pulled my coat tighter. The night smelled of wet pavement and coffee. I did not want pity. I wanted clarity. I wanted the ledger pages to be traced to whoever had planted them. I wanted Sophia to have the proof that Marco was innocent if he was. Above everything, I wanted not to be the hinge that broke a marriage if the ledgers had been meant as a trap. I put my hand on the locket again. My fingers felt its thin chain. The final choice of the night was clear. I could press the matter now and demand a public review, or I could leave and let Marco manage the narrative. Marco's decision to dismiss the papers had been public and sharp. I took a breath and folded my hands. I said, "I'll go home. I'll keep the letter. I will keep writing, even if the words stay unsent." The sentence was quiet but deliberate. Anna stood and hugged me quickly. "Don't be alone tonight," she said. Her voice had a directness that felt like a command. I nodded. I walked toward the taxi with a measured step. I left the envelope in my coat, the thin pages inside like an accusation and like evidence at once. I felt the city's night press around me in specific sounds: the taxi's engine, a door clang, rain on a windscreen. As the cab pulled away, I watched the hotel's doorway recede. Marco stood framed in the light, talking to Sophia with his hands folded behind his back. Luca hovered nearby. I could not tell what they were saying. I pressed my palm flat over the locket under my coat. I thought of the ledger pages, of the night the band flashed under hotel light, of all the small choices I had made to stay honest. My shame had shifted through fear and anger into a resolve to keep the truth safe until it could be proved. I slid my fingers back into my pocket and held the envelope there like a private secret. The cab's tires hissed on wet asphalt, and I told myself I would keep writing the letter I had never planned to send. I opened my phone and began to type a single line I would not send. "I loved him after he was married, but I will not be the cause of his ruin." Then I deleted it. I folded my hands and watched the city lights blur into ribbons. The cab turned a corner. I held the tight bundle to my chest and walked toward the shelter of my apartment 2 blocks away. The locket warm against my skin and the ledger's threat ringing like a bell I could not yet quiet. Outside, a knock sounded on a metal delivery door in the alley. Someone's cigarette ash fell and skittered across the pavement. Those small, concrete sounds anchored me. I kept moving. I would write the unsent confession tonight. I would keep the ledger safe. I would let Marco make his choice. For now, my step was a decision. To stay distant, to stay honest, and to let the truth surface by other hands. I folded my scarf, tightened my coat, and crossed the street. The taxi's taillights disappeared. The hotel's lights stayed on. I kept walking until the sound of guests faded and the city settled again into ordinary rhythms. The envelope weighed more than paper. It weighed the decision Marco had made for me. I kept my head down and put one foot in front of the other, feeling the locket between my fingers and the press of a choice that would follow me into the next day. I slipped onto the penthouse rooftop and saw Marco lift his left hand, the wedding band sliding over his knuckle as he stared at the city. Shame hit me first. The sharp, concrete heat of shame made my legs uneven and my breath short. I had not planned to find him here. I had planned a single handoff. The envelope, the receipts, the quiet proof in brown paper. The problem was now obvious in the halo of the skyline. If Sophia saw the ring off, she would read the wrong story. That danger is why I climbed the service stair instead of ringing the doorbell. I kept my steps small, heels down on the metal grate. The rooftop smelled of cold metal and old cigarette ash. Marco did not look surprised to see me. He lowered his hand and the band slid back on with a soft, private click. His mouth was a line I did not trust. I held the envelope like a small, inflammable thing. Elena, he said. His voice came flat, measured. He did not use my name the way he used it months ago in the office. Careful, almost clinical. What are you doing here? My answer was a single motion. I handed him the envelope. I had rehearsed that transfer since the hotel, since the SUV braked and the rain snapped the umbrella, since his bodyguard had closed the distance and taken the package from me with a practiced fist. Shame had kept me at the curb then. Shame drove me up the stair now. I let it be shame that sent me back. He took the envelope and did not open it. His thumb ran once over the flap. Luca's silhouette moved near the service door. The rooftop light threw Luca's jaw into shadow. He carried his watch like a small weapon. I knew Luca from before, broad, blunt, a man who treated interruptions like tools to be removed. Having him here made shame shift under my feet into fear. You shouldn't be here, Luca. He did not ask. He stepped forward. Marco dropped his voice. Luca, not yet. He kept his hand on the envelope but did not close his fingers. At that moment a second door opened and a woman appeared in the elevator light. Sophia stepped onto the terrace with a robe looped tight at her waist and a phone still open in her palm. The phone screen painted her face a hard blue. Sophia looked straight at Marco's left hand. For half a second, everyone held their breath in action. Marco's thumb tightened. Luca put a hand out toward me. Sophia's eyes narrowed. The central problem cut through the air. If Sophia read one line from the envelope, if she imagined anything beyond what the paper actually said, the story we made with our movements would be worse than the truth. It would be betrayal. Sophia moved faster than I expected. She reached for the envelope. Her fingers were small but precise. She did not say anything. She read. Her eyelids blinked once, then she said, "Whose handwriting is this?" The accusation hung in the cold, shame folded into something sharper, guilty exposure. I stepped forward because the envelope had been my plan to keep us honest. I put my hand toward Sophia's wrist in a motion meant to steady, to stop the reflex that would turn shock into cold fury. "Sophia, wait." "Marco." Sophia looked at him and then at me. "Is this yours?" she asked, and the voice she used when she wanted facts, hard and efficient. She did not call me Elena the way Marco had just done. She used the pronoun like a report. I said yes. The single-syllable answer was the clearest thing I gave anyone all night. My voice was small. I could feel the air move when Luca took a step closer. Sophia's thumb caught the first page and skimmed a line aloud. "I keep my hands in my pockets when I hand you papers so no one sees." She stopped. Her eyes widened and a quick, terrible assumption formed. I heard it in her breath. An external event snapped across the terrace. Her phone lit up with a message and she glanced down. The building's service intercom clicked behind us, a delivery signal. While she looked at her screen, I saw Chiara sprinting through the service door, breathless and wet from the rain outside. Chiara had the receipts in her fist. She held out a small stack of time, stamped parking slips, CAF invoices, and a note with a witness name written in block letters. Sophia, Chiara, out of breath. I ran all the time stamps. She met him at the coffee shop at 9:15. She left the meeting at 9:30. There are Shakespeare stills from the cafe door. Everything was public. Everything. Her words were concrete and quick, files sliding from her hand to Sophia's. Chiara's arrival changed the feeling on the terrace. My fear shifted into a kind of brittle hope. Sophia read the receipts. Her face made a movement I had not seen before. She looked at Marco and then at me, and for a second something like confusion crossed her features. "These show public meetings," she said slowly. "They don't show what wasn't recorded. No, Marco." He stepped between Sophia and me with an economy of motion I recognized from months of seeing him arrange meetings. He held the envelope between his fingers so the flap was visible but sealed. "They don't show anything that didn't happen." His voice had a weight to it now. It was the voice that protected names. Luca's shoulders loosened a fraction, but he remained stationed. Chiara put her hand on my arm. She did not say my name. She squeezed once. The squeeze was an action that read as both reassurance and a reminder. This was why she had run. Sophia did not soften. She folded the receipts, set them beside the envelope on the rooftop bench, and said, "Then tell me what this is." The word "tell" doubled as a demand and a searchlight. Marco did not hand the envelope to Sophia. He closed his fingers around it and took a step back. "Sophia, I will be clear. Elena has carried a small ledger of papers to me for months. They are ledger notes, receipts, logistical things. Nothing between us has crossed that line." Sophia looked at him. "Marco, your hand was off your ring. You were alone with her on the roof. That is not ledger work." Her voice hardened, and then cracked in the middle like a door splitting. The scene tilted. A rapid exchange followed. Sophia demanded explanations. Marco answered with brevity. Luca interjected once or twice with directions. Luca's language was blunt. "Remove the woman, secure the envelope." Chiara argued in small, measured phrases about timestamps and public places. The argument included quick back and forth lines. "Marco, Sophia, listen." Sophia snapped. "Don't tell me to listen, Marco. This isn't what you think." "Sophia, then tell me what it is." "Marco, it is paperwork." "Sophia, you expect me to accept paperwork?" That was 5 short lines circling each other like a confined animal. My chest tightened. I felt a new change. The shame that had propelled me here shifted into resolve. If Marco would say the truth and protect me, I could accept the protection and keep the rest of my life whole. If he would not, then the envelope had failed and I would have to speak. The choice collapsed into a single practical question. What would Marco do to close this cleanly without splintering everyone in two? Marco met Sophia's eyes. "Sophia, I will not betray you. But I will not let Elena's name be dragged through this building because of an image. I will sign a statement confirming these were escorted public meetings. I will make the guard logs available. I will have Luca verify the times. I will do this tonight." His voice was low and controlled. He listed actions rather than feelings. He did not look away. Sophia's jaw worked. "And if people ask why you were on the roof with her?" Her question was practical. It was not spoken to wound as much as to map what had to be fixed. "Marco, I'll say I was dealing with a security concern. I'll accept their questions. I'll accept the explanation. I will not let her be named in gossip." There was a pause that felt like the terrace holding its breath again. Chiara moved then. She stepped closer to Sophia and spoke in a voice small but direct. "Sophia, I can give you the receipt copies and the witness note. I can stand with you if you want a fuller account. Elena met Marco in public always. If you want me to go with you to the security office, I will." Chiara's offer was concrete. Paperwork, witness, physical presence. That shifted the power away from accusation and toward verification. It made Sophia hesitate. Sophia's shoulders dropped in a way that was almost exhaustion. She folded the receipts into her robe pocket. She looked at Marco. "You will do that tonight. You will not hide this. If I discover you hid anything, Marco, we will talk differently." Her voice carried a promise that read like a hinge. She did not lay out divorce or forgiveness. She laid out a threshold of transparency. "Marco, I understand." He stepped back and handed the sealed envelope to Luca. Luca took it with gloved hands and slipped it into his inside jacket as if storing an evidence bag. That small, deliberate motion made my heart slow. Sophia turned away first and went back toward the elevator. Before she crossed the threshold, she paused and looked at me for the first time, not as a rumor but as a person in the scene. Elena, why didn't you come to me?" The question carried accusation, but also a trace of real confusion. I looked at Sophia, then at Marco. I thought of the hotel curb, the SUV, the envelope being snatched, my rehearsed transfers. I realized then that my restraint had not only been about vows. It had been about protecting people, Sophia, Marco, myself, from a rumor that could spiral. I answered plainly. I was trying to protect you from a story that would never be true. I didn't want to make it worse. "I am sorry I did not come to you first." The words were short. They were concrete apologies, not sweeping confessions. Sophia's face did not soften. She only said, "Good. For now, that's enough." She stepped into the elevator and the doors closed. The rooftop was suddenly quieter, as if the terrace exhaled. Outside, the city moved on. Marco turned toward me and said, "Elena, come with me inside. We will make the statement now. Let Luca arrange the logs. Chiara, thank you. Please wait with her until we finish this." He directed the lines like someone arranging furniture in a room so conversation could happen without breaking anything. Inside the service corridor, Marco lowered his voice. We were 5 paces from the elevator, and I could hear the building's mechanical hum. "You didn't have to come up here. You could have left the envelope at the reception," I said. "Because they might have read it. Because my hands shake too much when I leave things in public. Because the last time..." I stopped. I remembered the night the bodyguard pulled the envelope hard from my fingers. I remembered the hotel light igniting the band on his finger and my own reaction to step back. I had promised myself not to repeat panic-driven choices. Marco's hand found my wrist for a second and then let go. The touch was not tender, it was steadying. "You did what you thought would keep people safe. You complicated things instead. But I will handle it." His jaw tightened, as if saying that cost him something. We sat in the small security office with guards and logs. Marco signed a short, factual statement that referenced meetings, timestamps, and escort procedures. Luca stood a few feet away, watching the doorway. Chiara repeated the witness account in precise language. The security clerk typed into a computer and printed off logs. Everything was concrete: times, names, camera stills. The clerical work collapsed rumor into paperwork. When the statements were filed, Marco walked me to the service stair. At the top of the stair he turned and said, "I will call Sophia in the morning and tell her exactly what you said to me in those notes. I will make sure there is no place for gossip to start. I will keep my promises." His voice had the same controlled edge it had on the roof, but a softness had entered at the end of the sentence. A residue I had not earned and could not accept. "What does that mean for you and Sophia?" I asked. I needed the question to be specific. I needed to know whether his protection would be a paper shield or a wedge. Marco inhaled. He answered, "It means I will be honest. It does not mean I will break my vows. It means I will not let you be blamed for something that was never yours to carry." The word vows landed like a simple, immovable fact. My body registered it as both relief and a small, tightened grief. I had loved him after he was married. That phrase had been my private ledger for months. Here on the stair, the ledger closed not with a reckoning but with a sealed agreement of limits. Back at my small apartment before dawn, I opened my worn leather journal and set the thin gold locket on the page. The locket had been my choice to carry when I rehearsed restraint. I traced the edge with one finger. Chiara texted me a brief line, "Be home safe." I texted back a simple thanks. I thought of Sophia's eyes, of Luca's shoulders, of Marco signing paperwork to protect a name he would not undo. I finished the unsent letter in my head line by line. I did not write it down. I did not need to. The letter said exactly what I had never said aloud. That I loved him but had never crossed the boundary he had set. That holding the truth had been its own kind of care. That I was choosing to let him keep the life he had chosen. The sentences were precise and deliberate in my head, not grand, not theatrical. They were private motions. I put the locket into the envelope that held the receipts and pushed it toward the building's outgoing mail slot. The action was small and practical. It was also symbolic by necessity. When the envelope slid into the chute, the sound of paper against metal felt final in a way that no speech could make final. The building swallowed the envelope. I stood on my balcony as the city shifted from night to dawn. The streetlights hummed. A delivery truck backed into an alley 3 blocks away. I felt the H settle differently. Shame had led me here. Fear had pushed me to ask for help. Clarity had arrived through receipts, signatures, and witness statements. Acceptance was what remained. The emotional shifts had been visible in each action: my steps onto the rooftop, Chiara's sprint, Marco's statement, Sophia's demand. Each decision moved the story forward. Before the light changed, my phone rang. It was Marco. I let it go to voicemail. When I listened, he left a short message. Sophia and I talked. We'll go through the logs and speak to the building tomorrow. I'm sorry you had to do this. Thank you for the receipts. Rest, Alina. He did not promise anything beyond the facts. He did not ask me to return to him. He simply closed with the same steady tone that had guided him all night. I put the phone down and slid my thumb into the small gold locket. It was warm where my skin pressed. I did not open it. I did not burn the unsent letter. I breathed and let the evening's decisions sit in my chest like small tools that I could count when memories tried to change shape. Morning arrived by degrees. Sophia texted me a short, measured line. We'll speak when the building's logs are clear. Chiara arrived with coffee and did not ask prying questions. Luca sent a guarded message confirming the envelope had been secured. Marco's life continued at the distance he had chosen. My life continued with the restraint I had chosen. That night finished the ledger I had started months ago. The last conflict on the terrace, public accusation versus factual record, had been resolved by names, times, and witness statements rather than by theater. Marco had protected my name without breaking the life he had made. Sophia had demanded answers and received them in concrete form. Chiara had run to bring evidence and had changed the direction of the conversation with a folder of receipts. I folded my journal shut and slid the thin locket back under my collar. The chapter closed on the small, decisive motion of placing the envelope in the mail chute and letting the building handle the rest. That was the final situational beat of the night. The envelope disappearing into a slot, a decision made, and the knowledge that I had kept my restraint without destroying anyone. The unsent letter remained in my head, finished and private, and the locket at my throat was a small, physical trace of what I chose to keep. Sometimes protection asks for silence, sometimes silence is its own kind of mercy. I turned the balcony light off and went inside, the metal click of the door behind me marking the end of the night and the start of what comes next.